My youngest sibling vanished during a wilderness excursion with companions. She had just celebrated her 20th birthday, and our bond had begun to wane. I had become engrossed in my own pursuits, relocating abroad for a fresh employment opportunity. Upon returning home for the holidays, I learned of her disappearance, clarifying her unresponsiveness to my communications. Perplexingly, nobody had reached out to inform me of her vanishing act. Law enforcement purportedly lacked my updated contact details and were unable to access her phone. I suspected her friends harbored reservations about involving me, as they seemed to struggle with aligning their narratives. Seeking a sabbatical from work, I endeavored to locate these 4 companions. They'd all maintained that she had ventured off to relieve herself in the wee hours, unnoticed until morning. Their accounts of the campsite's location varied slightly, lacking consistency in descriptive details. Discrepancies misled the search efforts, diverting attention away from the actual site. I relayed this information, but due to the wintry conditions, the authorities deferred further investigations until spring, promising to explore alternative camping spots where the group might have inadvertently ventured. Subsequently, our friends became reticent, resorting to legal threats. With no alternative, I reluctantly returned to work, waiting the thaw of winter. The call came during my workday. She had been discovered. Well, fragments of her remains had surfaced. A prospector panning for gold stumbled upon finger bones in a river. With the onset of the forest's busy season, more remnants emerged. Half a skull, several ribs, and the finger bones were identified, with additional bones pending confirmation. Demanding visual evidence of each discovery, I grew disillusioned with the authorities' conclusions. Despite closing the case as a mere instance of misadventure, the condition of the remains hinted at a more sinister fate. Scratched femurs with marrow missing, ostensibly attributed to animal activity, raised doubts. Our parents passed away when I was 17 and she was 14, compelling me to assume responsibility for her well-being. Yet, in adulthood, I had presumed she no longer required my vigilance. I was mistaken. If I couldn't protect her, the least I could do was seek justice. Too many inconsistencies persisted. I resigned from my job despite my sympathetic boss's offer of reinstatement, and embarked on a quest for answers. Conducting inquiries among local vendors, I probed into the circumstances preceding their woodland excursion. Evidently, my sister had forged friendships with these 4 locals, transitioning from online interactions to a physical rendezvous. Yet, a palpable reticence pervaded the town, with residents feigning ignorance while concealing a darker truth behind forced smiles. Following a cursory investigation, I proceeded to the ranger station, resolved to extract further details from the officials. 2 individuals manned the station: a burly elder, presumably Ranger Dan, and a younger woman bearing a striking resemblance to my sibling. As I introduced myself, her countenance faltered slightly. A grin faltered upon recognition. The other ranger remained seated, his visage partially obscured by a bulky local gazette. He leafed through its pages, deliberately disregarding my presence. "I've got nothing to offer," he grumbled without lifting his gaze. I pondered whether he sensed the intensity of my stare boring into the back of his skull. The younger woman oscillated between us, visibly distressed and uncertain of her response. Could I procure a chart delineating my sister's final whereabouts? "I'm unfamiliar with the area and wish to avoid losing my bearings," I requested. The elder ranger sighed, rising from his seat. He rifled through a stack of documents, eventually retrieving a trail map. Despite his patience in outlining the route and estimated duration of the hike, an underlying impatience lingered. He seemed resigned to my refusal to accept my sister's fate. "A whole season has passed. I'm not certain what you hope to uncover," the female ranger interjected innocently. "Anything," I retorted, stowing away the provided map. "I intend to spend some time in the woods." Ranger Dunn frowned, arms folded in disapproval of my intentions. Instead of dissuading me, he offered a single piece of advice. "Arm yourself," he suggested curtly. Pausing at the threshold, I allowed his words to sink in. While bears roamed the area, Fatalities had been absent for over half a decade. Nonetheless, I acknowledged his counsel with a silent nod, suspecting ulterior motives behind his abrupt demeanor. If only I could discern the root of his reticence, I might edge closer to unraveling my sister's fate and unearthing the enigma shrouding this town. The day had waned too far for a venture to the campsite. Renting a room at a local motel, I resolved to commence my expedition come morning. As darkness descended, I donned my jacket for a brief smoke outside. The figure pacing by my window prompted my exit. The female ranger, earlier encountered, startled at my presence. She had evidently mustered the courage to approach, nearly retreating upon sighting me. A moment passed before she regained composure. Venturing to the campsite would be futile, she asserted. Because my sister was never there, I inquired. Her lips tightened, confirming my suspicions. She gnawed her inner cheek, evading further conversation. Yes, I detested the deceit. Their true destination is intricate. I failed to see how a hiking trip could be overly intricate. Enlighten me, I urged, lighting a cigarette. My tone had grown aloof since my sister's demise, fixated solely on uncovering the truth. I surmised my brusque demeanor unsettled many. They journeyed to Rosethorn Cabin, a local legend, she began. My sister harbored a penchant for ghost tales and folklore. Her career aspirations remained nebulous. The last I knew, she juggled various part-time roles while pondering her future. Had she ventured here to document legends, writing had always been her forte. A decade ago, the mayor's children sought refuge in the cabin late in the season. A severe snowstorm ensnared them. A month elapsed before their plight was discovered. When a rescue party arrived, the son was found unscathed, but the daughter had vanished. She allowed the gravity of her words to settle. It was a needless tragedy. Yet, what relevance did a girl's demise a decade prior hold to my sister's fate? And, I interjected bluntly, no offense, but their tale is of no concern to me. In the aftermath, the mayor attempted to buy silence. The son retreated to the woods, inhabiting the cabin. Some suggest it was to evade accusations of wrongdoing, while others posit a darker theory, that he became Wendigo. She appeared somewhat sheepish uttering the term. I'd encountered passing mentions of such entities, though my fascination with myths paled in comparison to my sister's. My understanding was limited to the notion that one could transform into a Wendigo by consuming human flesh, often depicted with antlers in various artistic renditions. Why do they suspect him of such beyond the presumption he resorted to fratricide to prolong survival? Did his behavior become erratic? Did his appearance alter? I queried. He vanished from the cabin after the inaugural winter. Folks alleged sightings of a gaunt, pallid figure dwelling in the woods. Several campers disappeared, only for their skeletal remains to surface. Stripped of marrow, suggestive of consumption, she divulged, rubbing her arms as though a chill had descended. Casting furtive glances, she proffered papers from her rear pocket. I offer my condolences for your sister's demise. Her demise was unjustifiable. The mayor, now a formidable figure in politics, has spared no effort in concealing his son's potential involvement in woodland atrocities. Even if you uncover evidence implicating our local Wendigo in your sister's demise, disseminating the truth may prove futile. Nonetheless, I've drafted a map leading to the cabin. I trust it aids your pursuit, she expressed. Grateful for her candor amidst the town's veil of silence, I watched her depart discreetly. The townsfolk perceived the woods as harboring a monstrous entity, maintaining silence for my safety. Having finished my cigarette, I returned to the confines of the modest motel room, prepared to seek respite ahead of the impending hike. Come morning, I checked out, relying on a rudimentary map for guidance. Unmarked trails veered toward the cabin, obscured by overgrowth due to disuse. My sedentary occupation rendered the trek arduous. Frequent breaks were requisite to alleviate the strain on my unaccustomed muscles. Arriving at the dilapidated cabin hours before dusk, hunger and tension gnawed at my gut. I heeded the ranger's counsel, a weathered handgun, once belonging to my father, holstered at my hip. Our solo outing to the shooting range had ensued following my sister's disappearance, each target embodying the spectre of her assailant. Although it honed my marksmanship, it failed to resurrect her. The cabin, a decrepit shell, weathered by neglect, loomed ominously. An eerie silence pervaded the forest, the dwindling avian chatter a disconcerting harbinger. As storm clouds amassed overhead, raindrops heralded the onset of a tempest. Unplanned for a night's lodging within, I sought refuge from the deluge. The aged floorboards groaned beneath my weight, amplified by the crescendo of rain and wind outside. Navigating the confined space, I kindled a feeble fire within the hearth. Illuminated by the flickering flame, I scrutinized the worn floorboards, sporadically scrubbed clean in patches. Bending low, my fingers trailed over ancient scratches, indicative of a four-clawed assailant. For an hour, I scoured the confines, desperate for tangible evidence, fabric remnants or traces of blood, proof of my sister's presence. As despair threatened to engulf me, a glint of silver caught my eye amidst the floorboard's crevices. With painstaking precision, I retrieved the object, a diminutive silver-lettered charm. A surge of anguish gripped my heart. The charm evoked memories of my sister's graduation, the first token for her bracelet. Despite expecting an emotional deluge, a searing heat engulfed me instead, and I stowed the charm away, safeguarded. Undeterred by the looming spectre of a Wendigo or a fractured soul, I resolved to confront the perpetrator, regardless of the form it assumed. The tempest outside intensified, with thunder and wind rattling the edifice. Fearing the roof might collapse, I remained indoors, though the howling winds made me uneasy. My stomach churned with nerves, rendering dinner an impossibility. Wrapped in a blanket, I braced against the early spring chill, eyes fixed on the door. My provisions were intended to last until the storm abated. Yet, an ominous scent permeated the air as the rain waned. I recoiled, burying my nose in the blanket, attempting to evade the foul odor. It evoked memories of a ruptured trash bag from my youth, emanating a putrid stench far stronger than mere rotting food in the summer heat. As the rain subsided, footsteps approached, accompanied by the sickening stench. My fingers tensed, poised to draw my weapon. Slowly, the door creaked open, admitting a tall, emaciated figure into the cabin's dim confines. Panic seized me as I beheld the ghastly intruder, garbed in tattered raiment, lips torn asunder to reveal pallid gums. Its skeletal frame exuded an aura of menace, with filthy fingernails adorning bony hands. For a fleeting moment, its eyes seemed to glow white, inducing palpitations in my chest. Locking gazes, it grinned, emitting a fetid breath. Reacting swiftly, I discarded the blanket and opened fire. Though darkness obscured my aim, I should have hit my mark at such close proximity. I lost count of my shots as dark blood, nearly black in the dim light, oozed from 3 bullet wounds. Yet, it advanced undeterred, demonstrating no semblance of pain. Launching itself at me, it pinned me down, eliciting a frenzy of kicks and punches in my desperate attempt to repel the loathsome creature. To my horror, it chuckled, its unnatural strength restraining my arms. "You reek of her," it rasped, its voice gravelly. Revulsion mingled with rage as it drew nearer, the noxious odor overwhelming. Blood, chillingly cold, soaked through my clothing, a grim reminder of its otherworldly nature. "Are you envious?" It taunted through decaying teeth. "You loved her, yet I consumed her. She is forever a part of me, till you yearn for the same." Closing my eyes, I struggled to suppress the fury welling within me. Yet, a primal sound escaped my lips, initially mistaken for a wild animal's cry. Summoning all my strength, I wrested free from its grasp, resorting to primal instincts. In a frenzied surge, I sank my teeth into its finger, tearing it away. Spitting out the vile appendage, I recoiled as though burned, the acidic taste of its blood lingering. Recoiling in pain, it afforded me a moment's respite, allowing me to seize the blanket. In a swift motion, I draped it over the creature's visage, momentarily obscuring its vision, allowing me to retrieve the pistol discarded in our prior struggle. Positioning it against the creature's skull beneath the cover, I discharged the weapon until its chambers emptied, staining the blanket with dark ichor. Gasping for air, I crawled away, anticipating the creature's next move. Surely, it lay dead. It had to be dead. Yet, it stirred, rising with the blackened blanket, still concealing its features. Was it a trick of the mind? "Do you still cherish her?" it uttered in a distorted voice. Silence, I spat. She remains present. It extended gaunt arms as if offering something. I shook my head, refusing to acknowledge the surreal sight. "I adore you for her affection. I assimilated her essence. Together, we can reunite." "You not desire that?" it wheezed. Rage surged within me. A hefty flashlight lay within reach. I seized it in a frenzy. The initial blow reverberated painfully up my arm, but I persisted, driven by unbridled fury. The subsequent onslaught became a blur. How many strikes landed when the flashlight shattered, transitioning to bare fists, or when my fingers fractured from relentless pounding? All while the abomination cackled. Eventually, I succumbed, body and mind drained. At dawn's light, filtering through dusty windows, I half expected the ordeal to be a nightmare. Upon rising, I beheld the battered corpse where I'd left it. Contemplating incinerating the cabin with the remains inside, my mangled hands precluded the task. Instead, I dragged the body into the woods, covering it with foliage. Once my hands healed, I resolved to return and kindle a necessary blaze. The return journey proved arduous. Whether I concealed my injuries or the motel proprietor was indifferent. I sought solace in the bed, grappling with the agony. Hours later, a knock jolted me from my tormented slumber. Hesitant, I answered, fearing eviction due to credit card issues. To my surprise, Ranger Don stood outside, brandishing a first aid kit. He tended to my wounds in silence, sparing me from the worst of the pain. "There were 2 sons," he began, his gaze fixed on his task. "The eldest wasn't present at the cabin with his siblings. He blamed himself for their demise and slew his younger brother. Subsequently, he grew sickly and reclusive, departing for the cabin where his sisters perished. We sensed something amiss, but the extent eluded us until hikers vanished, their bones devoid of marrow. I tasted blood, gnawing my cheek in fury. These townsfolk had harbored knowledge of the woodland menace for years, yet remained inactive. My beloved Lexic perished as a consequence. Seething with silent fury, I ground my teeth. "Are you bound for home or elsewhere?" Ranger Don inquired solemnly. Initially, his words puzzled me. Though I had vanquished the entity responsible for my sister's demise, I felt adrift, devoid of any semblance of home. Returning to my former life seemed inconceivable in the wake of such tragedy. However, his subsequent inquiry sent a shiver down my spine. "Are you famished?" My stomach churned with a hunger that transcended mere physical need. It gnawed at me with an intensity that defied explanation, as though a void had opened within me. "Why did you never confront the woodland entity?" I ventured, my voice quivering. For once, he offered a straightforward response. "It's indestructible." As he concluded his ministrations and departed without a backward glance, a chill enveloped me. Despite immersing myself in scalding mortar, I couldn't shake the pervasive coldness that gripped my being. Something was amiss. A gnawing dread gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. I resolved to return to the woods, intent on incinerating the Wendigo. Yet, I couldn't bear the thought of my sister's fate remaining unknown. Venturing back into those dark depths might prove my undoing. Perhaps I delude myself into believing my sanity remained intact. Yet, the all-consuming hunger, the unnatural chill that coursed through my veins, and the compulsion to gnaw at my own flesh, all portents of a mind unraveling. Fear consumed me, for I recognized the precipice upon which I teetered. Madness or transformation into Wendigo, where the fate loomed menacingly. But in the end, my love for my sister compelled me forward. Fire, I believed, held the key to extinguishing the malevolent force that had wrought such devastation, lest it afflict another innocent soul. The night shift at the gas station on the outskirts of town was supposed to be a simple job. Fill shelves, serve the occasional customer, and mostly just pass the time until dawn. It paid enough to cover my rent and then some, so I had no reason to complain. That was until he arrived. This old man, driving a pickup truck that looked like it had seen better days, much better days. He came in around midnight, just as the boredom was starting to get to me. Said he was just traveling through and needed some gas. Sure, nothing out of the ordinary about that. But then he started talking about the Carter place up the road. According to him, it was some old family mansion that had been left to rot for years, and he warned me to keep away from it. Said it was trouble, that weird things happened there. People entered, but didn't always exit the same. I shrugged it off. It sounded like he was trying to scare me, a local myth or something. But he didn't smile. Just paid for his stuff, told me to watch out, and left. The power went out shortly after he left. 1 minute I'm sitting there, reading a magazine under the bright lights, and the next, I'm in total darkness. The backup generator should have kicked in, but it didn't. I was reaching for my phone to use it as a flashlight when I saw it. A figure standing outside, just past the glass door. It tapped on the window, a slow, steady rhythm that made my hair stand on end. I thought about what the old man said about the Carter place, wondering if this was some kind of joke. But who would go to such trouble? I walked towards the door, heart pounding, half expecting the figure to disappear. But it didn't. It stayed there, tapping, until I was close enough to see that there was no one there, just the reflection of the darkness and me. I couldn't get rid of the feeling of being observed after that. The power eventually came back. The night felt different, heavier. I decided to look up the Carter place online, curiosity getting the better of me. The stories I found were more unsettling than I expected. Vanishings, unexplained events, and stories of a family curse. It was all there, documented in police reports, old newspaper articles, and forum posts from people claiming to have witnessed the strangeness firsthand. That should have been enough to stop me, but it wasn't. The next day, I found myself driving up the road to the Carter estate. It was an impulse, I guess, a desire to see it for myself. The place was exactly as described. Neglected, dilapidated, and utterly menacing. I didn't go in. The sense of fear was too strong, the warnings of the old man ringing in my ears. I turned around and left, but the feeling that something was wrong stayed. The figure came back the next night, more distinct this time, its shape clear through the station's windows. It was as if the darkness outside had formed into the shape of a person. This time it spoke, or at least I had words in my head, a voice that wasn't mine telling me to go, to never return. I quit the next morning, unable to get over the horror of that encounter. I've tried to forget about it, to move on with my life, but it's hard. Sometimes I drive by the gas station, now torn down to make room for a new convenience store. And every time I can't help but look towards the road leading to the Carter place, half expecting to see something, or someone watching me from the shadows. The whole experience feels like a nightmare now, one I can't fully wake up from. I know I should be thankful I got out when I did, that I heeded the warning and didn't investigate further. But part of me wonders what's really there in the darkness of the Carter estate. I guess some mysteries are better left unsolved. At least that's what I tell myself. Anyway, I thought I'd share this here. Not sure what to make of it all, but it feels good to get it off my chest. Just be careful if you ever find yourself on the outskirts of town, near the old Carter place. Some legends are rooted in truth, and some truths are better left undiscovered.